Hi, I'm Kenzie. Welcome back to my podcast. If you are just joining, welcome. Today we will be talking about my 29th Little Bear VHS, Imagination Time. This VHS includes Little Bear's Trip to the Stars, Gone Fishing, Little Bear's Kite, and Pillow Hill. First, let's talk about Little Bear's Trip to the Stars. This episode starts out with Little Bear and Father Bear on a ship. Little Bear was pretending to be the captain by steering the ship's wheel and ringing the bell. Then another ship's bell was heard ringing. It turned out it was saying goodnight. The scene transitions to later that night. While Father Bear was setting up to sleep outside, Little Bear noticed his and the moon's reflection in the water. Father Bear told him to come back on deck and to put the moon back in the sky. He did just that, in his imagination, of course. Then Little Bear noticed Father Bear setting up to sleep outside because why not? It sure was a pretty night because there were so many stars. Father Bear decided to show Little Bear the stars because sailors and stars have been friends for years. He showed him the North Star, the next brightest star in the sky. He showed him Leo the lion. He showed him Pisces the fish. He even showed him the Big Bear and the Little Bear. In reality, it's really the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper. The scene then transitions to Little Bear tucked into his sleeping bag. Father Bear got tucked in as well. As Father Bear fell asleep, Little Bear looked up at the sky once more. Then he dreamed a dream where he was in the sky. He rode on Leo the lion. Then he and Taurus the bull ran into each other. Little Bear hung onto the Big Dipper and asked, "Any milk for me today?" Then Little Bear took another ride like a water slide. He then saw Pisces the fish and caught one. He wanted to show Father Bear, but he was nowhere to be seen. He had an idea. He would find the North Star who would bring him home to Father Bear. Little Bear woke up. He tried to wake Father Bear up and told him he went on a trip in the sky and how Father Bear disappeared. So he followed the North Star and found him. Little Bear then thanked Father Bear for showing him the stars. Now he's got some new friends. Father Bear thanked the North Star for bringing Little Bear home. And that's how the episode ends. Now let's talk about the episode as a whole. I feel like this episode was astronomical. I mean, it made me appreciate the stars even more. That's why I love nature so much. Also, seeing star animation is a must-see. It's pretty rare, too. All in all, it's an amazing episode. Now let's talk about Gone Fishing. This episode starts out with Little Bear wondering what Mother Bear was cooking. It turned out she was making a nice fish soup for supper. Little Bear told Father Bear in a picture frame the news. He then asked Mother Bear when Father Bear will be home. Mother Bear said soon, but you'd have to go buy a fish for tonight's soup. Then Little Bear had an idea. He would bring home a fish, just like Father Bear would. So he went outside to do just that. He saw Owl and told him he was going to catch a fish. Owl figured it would be time for him to think about supper as well. The winds were out of the south-southwest and the tide was low, which was good, nautically speaking. So Little Bear cast just like Father Bear taught him. Then he and Owl sang Blow the Man Down while they waited. All of a sudden, Little Bear caught a fish. It looked tiny though, but Owl thought it looked fine to him. Little Bear cast again while Owl ate the fish without Little Bear knowing. Little Bear yawned and rested. It's been a busy day fishing after all. Then he had an idea. He and Owl could play pretend. Little Bear could be Father Bear, Owl could be himself, and they are fishing on the ocean. So the scene transitions to Little Bear's imagination. He and Owl were in a real boat and fishing for lots of fish. Little Bear caught a trout, or maybe it was a flounder. Owl caught a halibut. Then he caught an octopus. Then Little Bear caught a whale. It was about to eat them. Then back to reality, Mother Bear entered the scene wondering what Little Bear was doing under the log. Little Bear told her everything that had happened in his exciting imagination. As he was about to tell her about the whale, he wondered where Owl was. He called for him, and Owl appeared. Mother Bear then asked Little Bear if he caught any fish. Little Bear looked in his bucket and found out it was gone. Then the fishing rod moved. Little Bear caught another fish. This time it was the perfect size for the soup. So the scene transitions to Mother Bear serving the fish soup to Little Bear. Owl didn't want any more, but it was scrumptious. As they talked about how someday Little Bear would go out on a real boat and catch a big fish, or an octopus, or a whale, he patted his tummy to indicate he was full after eating all that fish soup. Everyone laughed. And that's how the episode ends. Now let's talk about the episode as a whole. I feel like this episode was fun to watch a second time. The reason it's in the Imagination Time VHS is because we were imagining Little Bear and Owl were in a real boat and catching fish, I feel like. All in all, it's a good episode. Now let's talk about Little Bear's Kite. This episode starts out with Little Bear showing Grandfather Bear how he can blow on a dandelion. He wondered where the fluffs were going. Grandfather Bear told him they'll go wherever the wind takes them. Little Bear thought there was a lot of wind. Perfect for flying a kite. Grandfather Bear said that they can make one. So the scene transitions to them inside and making a kite. First, Little Bear made a small T. Then he wrapped with a string over and under, but he accidentally tied up Grandfather Bear's finger. So they started over. Then they glued on the paper. At least they tried to. Everything was getting sticky, so they went to wash their hands. Then they came back to press the paper edges down hard. The kite looked like it needed something, so the scene transitions to Little Bear painting himself on the kite. The only thing the kite was missing was the tail. Little Bear and Grandfather Bear made a rainbow for a tail. Then they went outside to fly it. Little Bear tried to do it by himself, but it was a job for 2 bears. So Grandfather Bear held the kite, Little Bear ran, and Grandfather Bear let go of the kite. The kite flew. It was working. While Little Bear was flying this kite, he imagined going anywhere in the world. If the string was long enough, that is. Then another kite got tangled with his kite. It turned out it was Emily's kite. She decided that she and Little Bear could fly their kites together. So the scene transitions to them doing just that. Then Little Bear said, "You never know where your kite might take you." And that's how the episode ends. Now let's talk about the episode as a whole. I feel like this episode was a fun one. It showed Little Bear and Grandfather Bear making a kite together and flying it together. Also, it sure is fun to imagine where you can go, whether you're on a kite or not. All in all, it's a good episode. Now let's talk about Pillow Hill. This episode starts out with Mother Bear checking on Little Bear in bed. He was sick with a cold. He was going to miss the picnic too, but Mother Bear told him he had to stay in bed until he got better. As Mother Bear left, 3 little birds entered the scene wondering what Little Bear was doing in bed. He told them he had to stay in bed because he was sick. So after the 3 little birds told Little Bear to feel better and flew away to the picnic, Little Bear tried to get some rest. The thing was, he was bored. It was no fun to stay in bed when one was sick after all. Then Father Bear entered the scene to comfort him. He told him a poem that his father told him whenever he was sick. As he told the poem, Little Bear made some hills and a mountain and an ocean with trees and houses and cities. He even pretended to be the giant on Pillow Hill. Then Mother Bear entered the scene with a picnic basket. The Bear family ate sandwiches. Later, it was time for Little Bear to get some sleep. As Mother Bear and Father Bear left, Little Bear imagined that Fisherman Bear was waiting for the giant on Pillow Hill to climb aboard the ship. They sailed off into the sunset. Then the scene transitions back to reality with Little Bear sleeping soundly. And that's how the episode ends. Now let's talk about the episode as a whole. I feel like this episode was once again interesting to watch. I feel like the reason they made it to the Imagination Time VHS is because it may not be fun to be sick, but you can still imagine what you would like to do. All in all, it's a good episode. So yeah, that's Imagination Time. If you would like to play again, just go back to the beginning of this episode. See you next time. Bye!